Okay, it's time to talk about Blizzard. I think it's safe to say that the jury is still very much out on Overwatch 2, as much as the PvE looks neat. It was a pretty weird sell to begin with. I mean, it felt, to many of us, like basically an expansion pack, masquerading as a sequel that is also trying to unite two separate player bases under sweeping gameplay changes, and also there's a story now. But right now, Overwatch 2 is more than just a game. It really carries the weight of Blizzard's future right now. The first game set the world on fire, but that was a very long feeling 5 years ago. Blizzard are a bit different now, and as a report from IGN actually digs deep into, that all sort of begs a vital question. Who's actually making Overwatch 2? What is going on at Blizzard? How many of the Overwatch 1 big people are still there? And why are so many veterans jumping ship, as we're seeing all of these stories of these new Blizzard companies appearing? Well, first, let's set the stage by talking about Overwatch 2 for a bit, and working out what we now know. So Blizzard have shown the game off a few times since it was revealed in 2019, but really, until recently, it's just been the PvE stuff that they've shown off. Now, in fairness, that does make sense. It's felt like Blizzard have always wanted Overwatch 2 to have more in terms of the story and all of that, and certainly, launching without story or PvE content is a bit weird for a flagship Blizzard game. But of course, Overwatch found massive success with really good PvP content. Now, Blizzard obviously knew all of this, so last week, well, we got a look at the kind of PvP that we can expect in Overwatch 2. Now, the big one is that matches are now 5v5 as opposed to 6 versus 6, removing one tank. And Blizzard are actually putting a lot of work into basically rebalancing everything. Now, 5v5, personally, I'm actually quite down for that with fixed rules. And in terms of the changes, there are a lot of things that are undeniable upgrades. UI improvements, re-recorded weapon audio, updated animations, things like that. But other decisions raise questions as to what exactly Blizzard are trying to achieve. And this is the bit that actually had me worried when I first saw it. Overwatch's core appeal has always been the hero part of it being a hero shooter. That's what they doubled down on, you know? Between the just excellent game feel of Overwatch and how unique every character was, it was just successful. It was just so good, it worked so well. But some of the Overwatch 2 changes actually feel homogenizing to me. They feel very safe. And they don't feel super Blizzardy, to be honest. In fact, they're changes that to me look like they're making the game feel more like a regular shooter. Homogenization, sort of. The entire support class gets Mercy's health regeneration passive, and every damage hero gets a movement speed boost. I mean, damn, that almost brings me back to the days of discussing sprint in the Halo community. Remember that? And I can see how some of this stuff is a good idea for, balance. But to me, it comes across as just big systemic things rather than being interesting. They're also widely reducing crowd control, which, that was vital to some toolkits. McCree might lose his stun. Mei can't freeze people anymore, and while Lucio's boop does remain, other reworks are going to render it a bit less useful. Now, look, I get it, being chain CC'd can be a frustrating thing, but I actually think it's the combination of all of those abilities and the unique utility of each hero that made Overwatch 1 actually feel unique and fresh compared to other shooters. To me, this is homogenizing between the characters. I don't really like the direction, even though I can see how it absolutely seems like it's a more balanceable, easy to manage and safe direction. I guess the sort of thing that feels like a regular shooter, maybe easier to balance, but I think it just loses a bit of what made Overwatch 1 stand out. And to be honest with you, it does make me think back, and this is pure speculation, but your Overwatch, when they talked about Jeff Kaplan leaving, they were a little bit wink wink nudge nudge about the whole thing. Right? And it just does make me wonder if there is some kind of pivot in the game direction here. Now, according to their Reddit AMA, this pivot to being more of a, quote, raw FPS, a first-person shooter, was a conscious philosophy shift. I don't know if I like that, even though I am more of a raw FPS player at heart. As for the PvE side of things, it actually does look like they're putting a bunch of excellent effort into that, and it is actually looking like a bunch of fun. But it kind of feels like Overwatch 2 is going to struggle to recreate the original's just explosive success. I think the narrative stuff is going to be great for the people who latched onto those characters, right? There's a lot of them. I think the PvP stuff, though, is... I feel like going more raw FPS is not the ideal direction. Surely that's the wheelhouse of the likes of Valorant, and they're doing all of that. Surely Overwatch should focus more on the abilities and stuff, but again, you can see why they would do it. Now, we're talking about Overwatch 2 here for a reason. It's because all of the recent news of Blizzard staff departures and things like that, that's left so many of us wondering, right? Left me wondering, what's going on at the company? Who's making the games, right? In the AMA, somebody asked about one of their old key animator, Michael Biancalana, maybe? Who knows? That's roughly his name anyway. But he worked in the iconic highlight intro system for Overwatch and loads of the original hero animations. Now, he actually left for Riot in 2017, and now he's at Bonfire Studios, which is another big ex-Blizzard studio, one of the older ones, Rob Pardo's studio. But the poster claimed that the game suffers from his absence. Another commenter noticed Blizzard's homogenization engine means, and that's a quote from them by the way, means that it's hard to see another specific artist's influence since. And that's just the interesting thing. I don't know how much that stuff matters, but certainly people can latch onto it and they can, make it seem big anyway. Another big one is Renaud Galland, Overwatch's lead character artist, who left Blizzard last week, actually, after nearly 12 years. Now, he started during Project Titan, of course, the ultimately very doomed MMO that would end up going on to becoming Overwatch, and he designed the models for characters like, say, Tracer, so pretty big. Now, he is just the most recent veteran after Kaplan to have jumped ship. Now, an IGN report goes into detail on these departures, with an anonymous staffer saying that, Kaplan was, quote, the last person we would have conversations about. In regards to the people leaving the company, right? All those murmurs between the staff of, oh wow, what big name's going to go next? The changes at Blizzard over the years, they have it feeling like veteran developers have got a little bit of a countdown timer above their head. I mean, Kaplan, with his 19-year career between World of Warcraft, Project Titan, Overwatch, he was a massive loss for the company, and seemingly one that was a bit surprising to staff. That same staffer said in the report that there isn't really anyone left at Blizzard who would make that big of a wave by actually leaving. I think that's just them pointing out that really, for a lot of the staff, a lot of the big head people from that older Blizzard are gone. They also said that he would be the last big blow. I suppose he was. Now, the IGN report says that a lot of veteran devs are actually still loyal to Blizzard's history and their culture, but that a bunch of these creatives are basically setting off for new pastures, right? Sometimes without ceremony, just kind of slipping off doing something new, which is actually kind of normal in industries. Now, the sources that IGN spoke to, if you actually want to get some reasoning in this, they cite burnout, layoffs, budget cuts, and a lack of major releases for this staff attrition. Basically, people feel more and more like it is just time to move on. And this is not a recent thing either, because IGN's report goes into the history of Overwatch and what Blizzard were actually like after Overwatch's success. So what happened is Blizzard reportedly went from about 6 teams all the way up to 13. And then they spun up new incubation stuff like crazy. But we basically haven't seen the results of that. We've just seen cancellations. Since 2016, they've released basically nothing bar Warcraft stuff and Hearthstone updates. Oh, and Warcraft 3 Reforged. So why would you want to stay there? Especially when they're doing things like, the profit-sharing situation. So IGN is claiming that despite Shadowlands' massive spike in revenues, Blizzard employees, they only got about half of what they expected from their profit share in this March, with Alan Brack, the president of Blizzard, internally saying that it's because of poor H2 2020 results. Now, it's the sort of thing there where, look, is this like, say, how we do it in our company, where we work out the quarterly profit, we basically divide it, and then that's it? Or is this some sort of thing where there is a very discretionary element at Blizzard? So I don't know if it's the case where it's legit, the numbers are bad, like not really good at all versus what they wanted, therefore all the bonuses scaled down, or if it was Blizzard thinking, darn, we missed our targets, so I guess we're just going to have to crank down the bonuses this time. We don't know. But I do know one thing. That's not ideal for the employees, right? In terms of, them getting compensation. A lot of these issues that Blizzard have had are top-level management, direction, things like that. It's meaning the company's going nowhere fast. And that's no way to keep your employees employed, because they're going to go to Riot and get double the money in many cases. I mean, especially when Blizzard's base wages are substantially lower than local competitors. And yes, Riot is the obvious one that comes to mind, but come on, Dreamhaven. They're just down the road. And I'm fairly sure that Mike pays more. Now, speaking of management issues, you've got the StarCraft first-person shooter project that's really not that much of a secret anymore. Of course it is very dead and cancelled. But IGN revealed that its cancellation actually came as a big surprise to the team working on it, many of whom actually ended up going to Dreamhaven. Now, that's basically a whole bunch of Blizzard's first-person shooter talent gone. I suppose they would have been welcome on the Overwatch 2 team. Now, at the time, my understanding had been that people from that project were being moved over to Overwatch 2, but perhaps it's the case that, some, maybe the rank and file did, but a bunch of the leads kind of ended up going and doing their own thing. But of course, we now know that Activision has perhaps called in Toys for Bob to help in Overwatch 2. Now, when StarCraft 2 support was being wound down, which apparently was something that happened quite suddenly, a lot of that team went off to Frostgiant to make a new RTS. And that kind of means that Blizzard can't really make an RTS that good anymore, because their real-time strategy talent is sort of not there anymore. They've left. So I guess pour one out for any hopes of Warcraft 4. And that part of Blizzard's legacy, RTS being their thing. Apparently, there is at least one more project that was canned internally that was an experimental mobile game. So, there's that. But it's that thing where not actually getting to finish games is one of the more rough feelings in the industry. For developers, I think it can only happen so much before people just want to go to a company where they can actually ship something. IGN said that Blizzard went from an attitude of, quote, spend whatever you want, to, quote, we need to cut costs. Around the time that J. Allen Brack took over in 2018. And that clearly meant that some projects had to die. Now, I'm not saying that that's Jab coming in there and, top down doing a bunch of draconian stuff. It's probably far more that when the, president and co-founder is gone and the new president is sort of a guy from the rank and file within the company, they're almost certainly a lot more controllable by, corporate, right? I mean, it does stand to reason. And look, as necessary as cutting costs is to a business, let's be real here, ultimately, if that cost cutting has got negative impacts on the front lines of the company, and if you're one of those creatives in the front lines, that's obviously not an environment you're going to feel fantastic working in, is it? And I think that all means that it seems that the environment to really work in is Dreamhaven. That's the place you would want to go, right? Or one of those many ex-Blizzard studios that Dreamhaven is now in bed with. I mean, as an example, last week they announced partnerships with Lightforge, with One More Game, and with Raidbase, all very full of ex-Blizzard members. Just that it's a sort of thing where I think it is a lot more easy for a veteran from Blizzard, a team lead, a high and up enough person, to leave to one of these big exciting new opportunities, maybe take along a few of their buddies. But point being, I think for your average person at Blizzard, as much as we can talk up, Dreamhaven and all that stuff existing, I don't really know if as many opportunities are there. It's probably more just these companies, poaching the cream of the crop as they see it. Then, though, there is some news on the impact of, the support staff cutbacks. So we're all too familiar with Activision Blizzard's history here, but, the impact that it has on developers is, I think, worse than many would imagine, because IGN claim that developers had to actually take time out of development work to do things like write patch notes and even help out with events, which is, of course, ultimately work that slows down getting actual game releases ready. Now, World of Goddamn Warcraft. That is a game the size of which is humongous, and honestly, frankly, and I say this having a good personal relationship with multiple people in the WoW community team, but at the community side of World of Warcraft, frankly, completely sucks. It's not the fault of those people that I know, right? Some of them are unfortunately losing their jobs soon because of the French office going down, and over in the American side, the support staff, the community managers in Irvine. It very much seems to me, based on it being completely obvious what it would be a good idea to do, and that none of that stuff gets done, it seems like they just do not have the resources. They don't have the stuff, right? And that means that whenever a new World of Warcraft test comes, it ends up being a bit of a shambles, because it's very hard to actually give any reasonable good feedback, because the communication from the Blizzard side is really that just not good. Again, I think that is a very clear example of they don't have enough resources. Maybe if people like, say, Caden is one example. I think there's other people in the WoW support team. Maybe if they didn't get fired, right, then perhaps it wouldn't have been a shambles. Now, perhaps it's the case that in other Blizzard games, the community doesn't feel those losses as much, but I think with Warcraft being the big live game where issues are extremely noticeable, it's bloody obvious to me. Now, as for their future, Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2 are still a ways off. I think that those releases could and should be massive for Blizzard, actually. And based on how those games are shaping up, I think everything that Blizzard releases in the next while actually should be exceptional enough overall. I have a few gripes about Overwatch, but it's probably still going to be very good. And I think Diablo 4 will probably be exceptional for what it's going to be. Based on the amount of time that all these projects have been given. Diablo 2 Resurrected, its testing was received, I think, extremely well. So that's almost certainly going to be a surefire hit. Diablo Immortal, that's almost guaranteed to add millions and millions and millions of MAUs from the East, and apparently it's tested incredibly well. The Burning Crusade Classics pre-patch has been mired with issues, but the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King, those were massive, potentially bigger than Classic. So there's an exceptionally bright future, actually, for Blizzard's metrics there. Blizzard have, I think, an insanely profitable few years coming up. I don't think there's much doubt about that. But you do have to wonder, will it be too late? Because as a source from the IGN report says, quote, "It feels like the company is just bleeding and taking punches, and realistically, the only thing that is going to stop that is shipping Diablo 4 or Overwatch 2. So how much will they have bled by that time? And as much as Vicarious Visions and Toys for Bob are excellent developers, they're not Blizzard. Activision's little blood transfusion they've given to Blizzard, I think that absolutely will change the nature of the company. I think that's fairly obvious. It might be for the better, actually, but I think it probably will be different. So, to be realistic here, there's a negativity bias, right? We have no idea how many talented and passionate developers remain at Blizzard. And indeed, the people who are most likely to leave are going to be those with the most clout and the most experience. So those will likely be the most widely known names. So that is going to kick up more of a stink than people just staying at the company. I mean, we don't know how many new staff they've hired, how many new people have been trained up this year, whatever. But all we can do is look for trends with the information that we've got, and it looks like Blizzard isn't just different in philosophy thanks to the management and stuff, but because many of the people who actually made Blizzard are not there. They're leaving. It's like a game development version of the Ship of Theseus. If Blizzard replaces old staff with new staff, to the point where the ship is completely new staff, are they still Blizzard? How much of the culture, remains? Credit to them, IGN actually put it kind of beautifully. For Blizzard, better times are perpetually just around the corner. It's just a question of how many existing staff will wait for them. And there is a larger issue, because you've got Diablo 4, you've got Overwatch 2. What then? What then, indeed? They are going to have something rather large, because if they have their good year of maybe 2022 Overwatch 2, 2023 Diablo, and then how long is the next dry spell? Is it going to be another 5 years? If it is, that's going to be very bad for Blizzard, because that could be spanning the 5 years where, say, Riot maybe has an MMO, a fighting game, and who knows what else, where a lot of these ex-Blizzard companies start actually having their games release. So, for Blizzard right now, it's all eyes on Overwatch 2 to answer all these questions. That's what it's got to do. When it launches, we will basically have our proof. Is it going to be a Blizzard game, something that feels like a Blizzard game, or is it going to be something a bit different? Is it not going to have that level of being daring? I mean, I'm certainly interested in the PvE, but my heart did sink a little bit when I read up on the PvP changes. I don't know, though. I've not played much since, I think, Season 2. So if you're a current Overwatch player, let me know. Do you think the meta is actually better when we're going with, well, one tank, but then McCree having no stun, May not freezing people, things like that? Let me know. Okay, that's it for today's video, talking a little bit about Overwatch 2, and also that big, juicy report from the people over at IGN. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.